Jake Morrison floated in the dark space between stars. His thick spacesuit kept him warm and gave him air to breathe. The small lights on his helmet showed him the way forward through the floating pieces of broken ships he had been looking for. Something for 3 days now. A signal had been calling out from this place. It was weak but steady, like a heartbeat in the darkness. Jake worked as the main engineer on a human ship called the New Frontier. His job was to find broken ships and take useful parts from them, but this was different. This signal was not like anything Jake had heard before. "Jake, what do you see?" "Out there?" Captain Lisa Hayes asked through the radio in his helmet. She was back on their ship, watching him through the cameras on his suit. "Lots of metal pieces floating around," Jake said. "But there's something big up ahead, really big." Jake moved closer to the thing that was making the signal. When he saw it clearly, his mouth fell open in surprise. It was a ship, but not like any ship he had ever seen. It was huge, much bigger than any human ship. The outside was smooth and dark, like black glass. Strange patterns covered the whole surface, glowing with a soft blue light. "Captain Hayes, you need to see this," Jake said. His voice was shaking a little. "What is it, Jake?" "I think I found an alien ship, and it's still alive." The ship looked like it was made from one giant piece of crystal. It was beautiful, but also scary. Jake could feel something strange about it, like it was watching him, even though he could not see any windows or cameras. Dr. Alex Carter's voice came through the radio. He was the smart guy on their team who knew about alien life. "Jake, be very careful. We don't know what we're dealing with." Jake moved around the big ship, looking for a way to get inside. His tools told him that the ship was made of materials that humans had never seen before. The metal was stronger than anything they could make, and it was doing something impossible. It was getting warmer as Jake got closer to it. "The ship is reacting to me," Jake said. "It knows I'm here." He found what looked like a door. It was sealed tight, but when Jake put his hand on it, the metal started to glow. Slowly, the door opened with a soft hissing sound. "Did you just open an alien door?" Captain Hayes asked. "I think the door opened itself," Jake said. He looked inside. There was light coming from the walls, and he could see a long hallway going into the ship. Jake stepped inside. Right away, he noticed something amazing. He could breathe. The air in the ship was perfect for humans. It was like the ship knew what kind of air he needed and made it for him. "This is impossible," Dr. Carter said when Jake told him about the air. "Ships don't just make air for visitors." Jake walked down the hallway. The walls were covered in moving patterns of light. They looked like star maps, but of places Jake had never seen. The floor was soft under his feet, even though it looked like solid crystal. "I think the ship is trying to talk to me," Jake said. "The lights change when I walk by them." The hallway led to a huge room. Jake guessed it was the bridge where the ship was controlled from. The room was as big as a house. The walls showed pictures of distant stars and planets. In the center of the room was a large crystal that glowed with soft light. Jake walked up to the crystal. It was beautiful, like a giant diamond. But when he got close, he could hear something. A very quiet sound, like music or singing. "There's something special about this crystal," Jake said. "I think it's the brain of the ship." "Don't touch anything," Captain Hayes warned. "We don't know what might happen." But Jake was an engineer. He had fixed thousands of broken machines. He could feel that this crystal wanted to be touched. It was calling to him, asking for help. Jake reached out slowly. The crystal grew brighter as his hand got closer. When his fingers touched the smooth surface, everything changed. The whole ship came alive. Lights flashed on everywhere. The floor started to vibrate. The walls began showing moving pictures of stars and planets. And Jake felt something enter his mind. It was not painful. It was like having a new voice in his head, but a friendly voice. The ship was talking to him, not with words, but with feelings and pictures. Jake saw images of the ship's builders. They were tall and thin, with skin that looked like silver. They had big eyes and long fingers. They were beautiful and seemed very smart, but something had happened to them. They were gone now, and their ships were floating in space, waiting. Jake, what's happening? Dr. Carter asked. All our instruments are going crazy. The ship is waking up, Jake said. His voice sounded different now, calmer and more sure. It's been sleeping for a very long time. It was waiting for someone to find it. The crystal under Jake's hand grew warm. Information flowed into his mind. He learned things about space travel that humans had never discovered. He saw maps of the galaxy with paths between stars that were faster than anything humans could use. He understood how the ship worked, even though it was built with technology far beyond human knowledge. This ship is teaching me, Jake said with wonder in his voice. It's showing me secrets that could change everything for humans. Captain Hayes was quiet for a moment. And she said, Jake, you need to get back to our ship right now. I'm getting calls from the Space Council. They know we're here. The Space Council was a group of alien races that made rules for the galaxy. Humans were new members, and they had to follow all the rules. One of the biggest rules was that if you found old alien technology, you had to give it to the Council. Right away. I can't leave this ship, Jake said. It needs me. And I think we need it too. The crystal pulsed with light. Jake felt the ship's engines starting to work. After sleeping for thousands of years, the alien ship was ready to fly again. Jake, this is dangerous, Dr. Carter said. If the Council finds out we're keeping alien technology, they might kick humans out of the galaxy community. Or worse, Captain Hayes added. They might decide that humans are too dangerous to be allowed to travel in space. But Jake was not listening anymore. The ship was showing him things that made him angry. He saw the truth about the Council and what they had done long ago. He saw why this ship was hidden and why its builders were gone. Captain, Jake said, his voice hard now, we're not giving this ship to the Council. We're keeping it. Jake, you can't be serious. I am serious. This ship chose us. And after what I've learned, I think we're going to need it. The alien ship's engines hummed to life. For the first time in thousands of years, it was ready to fly among the stars again. And Jake Morrison, a simple human engineer, was now its captain. The galaxy was about to change forever. The alarm bells rang loud on the human patrol ship Liberty's Edge. Commander Ryan Brooks ran to the bridge, his boots making heavy sounds on the metal floor. His crew was already at their stations, looking worried. Sir, we just got an emergency. Message from the Space Council, said Lieutenant Tom Garcia. They want us to stop a human salvage ship right now. Ryan looked at the message on his screen. The Space Council was very angry. A human team had found something they called an architect relic and refused to give it up. The Council was calling it the worst crime any species had ever done. Where are they now? Ryan asked. The New Frontier is still at the wreck site. Tom said, But sir, there's something else. Our sensors are showing impossible readings from that area. Ryan knew about the architects. Every space pilot learned about them in school. They were an ancient race that built the stargates connecting all the worlds. No one knew what happened to them, but their technology was considered holy by the Council. No one was allowed to touch it. Get me Captain Hayes on the radio, Ryan ordered. Back on the alien ship, Jake Morrison was learning things that amazed him. The crystal had connected to the computer chip in his brain, something all human engineers had. But instead of just giving him information, It was teaching him how to think like the ship's builders. "Jake, you need to listen to me, Captain," Hayes said. She was scared. "Commander Brooks is calling. The whole Council fleet is coming for us." Jake touched the crystal again. The ship showed him pictures of what was coming. 12 big warships, all flying fast toward their location. They had enough firepower to destroy a small planet. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "Maybe 2 hours," Dr. Carter said. He was checking his instruments. "But Jake, this ship hasn't moved in thousands of years. Are you sure it can fly?" Jake smiled. The ship was talking to him in his mind, showing him how everything worked. It was like having a friend who knew all the answers. "This ship is not just alive," Jake said. "It's been waiting for us. It chose humans for a reason." The ship's engines started to hum louder. Jake felt the power building up inside the huge vessel. It was incredible, like holding lightning in a bottle. "Captain Hayes, bring our ship inside," Jake said. "This vessel has a landing bay big enough for 10 ships like ours." "Are you crazy? We should run while we still can." "No," Jake said firmly. "Running won't help. The Council will just keep hunting us. It's time to make a stand." Commander Brooks finally got through to Captain Hayes. His voice was tight with worry. "Lisa, what are you doing out there? The Council is sending their best warships. You need to surrender that alien technology right now." "I can't do that, Ryan," Captain Hayes said. "You don't understand what we found here." "I understand that you're about to start a war," Ryan said. "The Council is already calling humans a dangerous species. If you don't give up that ship, they might kick us out of the galaxy." Jake was listening to the conversation while he learned more about the ship. What he discovered made him angry. The crystal was showing him the real history of the galaxy, not the lies the Council told everyone. "Commander Brooks," Jake said, taking over the radio, "the Council has been lying to everyone for thousands of years. This ship is showing me the truth." "Jake, you're an engineer, not a historian, Ryan." "Sighed. You don't know what you're talking about." "I know that the architects didn't disappear," Jake said. "They were murdered. And the Council species were the ones who killed them." There was silence on the radio. Then Ryan said, "That's impossible. The Council would never do such a thing." "The ship is showing me proof," Jake said. "Pictures, records, everything." The Council got scared that the architects were too powerful, so they decided to destroy them. The alien ship was teaching Jake how to use its weapons and defenses. What he learned made him understand why the Council was so afraid. One architect ship could defeat an entire fleet of modern warships. "Jake, even if that's true, it doesn't matter now," Captain Hayes said. "We have to deal with the ships coming for us." Jake looked at the tactical display the ship was showing him. The 12 Council warships were getting closer. They would arrive in 1 hour. "Don't worry," Jake said. "I know how to handle them." Dr. Carter was studying the ship's computers. What he found shocked him. "Jake, this vessel isn't just a ship. It's like a flying city. It has factories, farms, living spaces for thousands of people. The architects built these ships to last forever," Jake said. They were exploring the galaxy, looking for new friends. But instead of friends, they found enemies. The ship's main computer was showing Jake battle plans. The architects had been peaceful, but they were not helpless. When the Council species attacked them, they fought back. But there were too many enemies and not enough architects. They knew they were going to lose, Jake said sadly. So they hid their ships and waited for someone worthy to find them. "And it chose us?" Captain Hayes asked. "It chose humans because we weren't part of the massacre," Jake said. "We're the only major species that didn't help kill the architects." The ship's engines reached full power. Jake felt the whole vessel come alive under his control. It was like becoming one with the most powerful machine ever built. The Council fleet just dropped out of hyperspace, Tom Garcia reported from the Liberty's Edge. They're demanding surrender. Admiral Zethkri's voice came over the radio. He was the leader of the Council fleet. Human vessels, you have committed the greatest crime in galactic history. Surrender the architect technology immediately, or face destruction. Jake looked at the tactical display. The 12 Council ships were spread out in an attack formation. They had enough firepower to destroy 100 human ships. Admiral, Jake said calmly, you're the one who committed crimes. This ship is showing me what you did to the architects. Lies, Admiral Zethkri said angrily. You humans know nothing of galactic history. I know that you're afraid, Jake said. You're afraid that someone will learn the truth about what you did. The Council ships powered up their weapons. Jake could see the energy building up in their cannons. They were ready to fire. Last warning, human, Admiral Zethkri said. Surrender or die. Jake put his hand on the crystal. The ship responded to his thoughts, moving faster than he could speak. In less than a second, the alien vessel disappeared from where it had been floating. Where did they go? Shouted one of the Council ship captains. The alien ship reappeared behind the Council fleet. Jake had learned how to use the quantum drive, a technology that let the ship jump instantly from one place to another. Right behind you, Jake said over the radio. The Council ship spun around, but the alien vessel was already moving again. It danced through space like a living thing, appearing and disappearing faster than the enemy could track. Fire all weapons, Admiral Zethkri ordered. The Council ships opened fire with everything they had. Laser beams and missile streams filled the space where the alien ship had been. But it was already somewhere else. Jake was amazed at how easy it was to control the ship. It responded to his thoughts as if it were part of his own body. The architect technology was so advanced that it made the Council ships look like toys. Time to end this, Jake said. The alien ship stopped jumping around. It sat still in space, right in front of the Council fleet. For a moment, everyone wondered what was happening. Then Jake activated the ship's main weapon. It was not like human weapons that destroyed things. The architect weapon was designed to disable enemy ships without hurting the people inside. Streams of energy reached out from the alien ship and touched each Council vessel. One by one, the enemy ships went dark. Their engines stopped. Their weapons powered down. Their lights went out. In less than a minute, the entire Council fleet was floating helplessly in space. What did you do to us? Admiral Zethkri asked. His voice was confused and frightened. I showed you mercy, Jake said. The architects could have destroyed you all. Instead, I just turned off your ships. Your crews are safe. Commander Brooks was watching everything from the Liberty's Edge. He could not believe what he had seen. One alien ship had defeated 12 of the Council's best warships without even trying. Jake, Ryan said quietly, what have you become? I'm still human, Jake said. But now I understand what we're really capable of. The architects saw something in us that the Council species lost long ago. What's that? The ability to choose mercy over revenge. The alien ship turned toward deep space. Jake had learned that there were other architect vessels hidden throughout the galaxy. It was time to find them and wake them up. Where are you going? Captain Hayes asked. To find the truth, Jake said, and to make sure the Council never commits genocide again. The ship's quantum drive activated. In a flash of light, the alien vessel disappeared, leaving the disabled Council fleet floating in space. The galaxy would never be the same. The news of the Council fleet's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On every world, people talked about the human who had taken control of an architect. ship and beaten 12 warships without destroying them. High Counselor Vex Thani called an emergency meeting on the capital world of Altair Prime. Leaders from 50 different species gathered in the Great Council Chamber. They were all afraid and angry. "The humans have gone too far," Vex Thani said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "They have stolen sacred technology and used it against us. This cannot be allowed." Senator Krilta from the Hegemony Worlds stood up. "The humans are still a young species. Maybe they don't understand what they've done." "They understand perfectly," Admiral Zethkri said. He had been rescued from his disabled ship and was now on Altair Prime. The human called Jake Morrison knew exactly what he was doing. He has bonded with the architect ship. They are one being now. The other leaders murmured worriedly. No one had ever heard of a living being bonding with architect technology. It was supposed to be impossible. "We must destroy them before they find more ships," Vex Thani declared. "I am ordering the Great Fleet to assemble. We will use every warship in the galaxy if we must." Meanwhile, Jake Morrison was learning more about his new ship every day. The vessel had taken him to a hidden star system at the edge of the galaxy. Here, floating in the darkness, was something that took his breath away. It was a space station bigger than any human city. The entire structure was made of the same crystal material as his ship. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "What is this place?" Captain Hayes asked. She and her crew were still aboard the New Frontier, which was now permanently docked inside the architect ship. "It's a library," Jake said, his voice filled with wonder. "The architects built it to store their history and knowledge." Dr. Carter was looking at his instruments. "Jake, this station is ancient. It's been here for over 50,000 years." Jake guided his ship into the station's docking bay. The moment they connected, information began flowing into his mind. But this time, it was different. Instead of technical knowledge, he was learning about history. "The architects weren't just builders," Jake said. "They were teachers. They traveled the galaxy, helping young species learn about space travel and science." The ship's computer showed Jake images of the past. He saw the architects visiting worlds across the galaxy, sharing their knowledge freely. They helped the ancestors of the current council species learn to fly between stars. "They were like parents to the younger races," Jake said. "They never asked for anything in return." But then Jake saw something that made him angry. The images showed how the younger species began to fear their teachers. They worried that the architects would always be more powerful than them. Fear turned to hatred, Jake said, and hatred turned to war. The station's records showed the truth about the Great War. It was not a war between equals. It was a massacre. The younger species had worked together to hunt down and kill every architect they could find. "They called it the Purge," Jake said, his voice heavy with sadness. "They destroyed entire worlds just to make sure no architects survived." Dr. Carter was studying the station's records. "Jake, according to this, the architects never fought back. They just tried to run and hide. They were peaceful beings," Jake said. "They couldn't understand why their children wanted to kill them." Captain Hayes was listening to all this with growing horror. "If this is true, then the Council has been lying to everyone for thousands of years." "It's worse than that," Jake sighed. "Look at this." The ship showed them images of the aftermath of the Purge. The younger species had taken all the architect technology they could find. They reverse-engineered it and claimed it as their own inventions. The stargates, the quantum computers, the energy shields, Jake said. All of it was stolen from the architects. The Council built their entire civilization on the technology of the people they murdered. The station's computer had been waiting for someone to find it. Now it began transmitting data to Jake's ship. Technical plans, star maps, and most importantly, the locations of other hidden architect facilities. There are hundreds of them, Jake said in amazement. The architects hid their technology all over the galaxy before they were killed. But Jake also learned something else. The architect ships were not just vehicles. They were judges. Each one had been programmed to test anyone who tried to use it. The ship would only work for people who proved they were worthy. That's why the ship chose me, Jake realized. It was testing me from the moment I touched the crystal. It wanted to see if humans were different from the other species. Different how? Captain Hayes asked. Different enough to be trusted with the power to change the galaxy. While Jake was learning about the past, the Council was preparing for war. The Great Fleet was the largest military force in galactic history. Over 3,000 warships from dozens of species were gathering at the staging area near the Vega system. Admiral Zethkri was given command of the fleet. His orders were simple. Find the human with the architect ship and destroy him. We cannot allow this human to find more architect technology, Vexthani told the admiral. One ship was enough to defeat 12 of our best vessels. If he finds more, we could lose control of the galaxy. What about the other humans? Admiral Zethkri asked. They might try to help him. The human colonial government has already agreed to cooperate, Vexthani said. They are as afraid of this rogue engineer as we are. But the human colonial government did not speak for all. Humans. On frontier worlds and mining stations, people were talking about Jake Morrison and what he had discovered. Some called him a hero. Others called him dangerous. Engineer Pete Collins was working on a mining station near Tau Ceti when he heard the news. He was fixing a broken fusion reactor when something strange happened. The station's sensors detected a massive object approaching. What is that? Pete asked the station commander. I don't know, the commander said. It's huge, but it's not showing up on any of our identification systems. The object was another architect ship. It had been drifting in space for thousands of years, waiting for someone worthy to find it. When it detected Pete's neural implant, it came to investigate. Pete was a good engineer, just like Jake. He was honest and hardworking. He wanted to help people, not hurt them. The architect ship recognized these qualities and began calling to him. I have to go out there, Pete told the commander. Are you crazy? We don't know what that thing is. I think I do, Pete said. And I think it needs help. The same thing was happening on other worlds. Dr. Rachel Stone was aboard a research ship when an architect vessel appeared. Commander Nick Taylor was on a prison world when another ship landed near his camp, all across the galaxy. Hidden architect. Ships were waking up. They had been waiting for the right time, when someone worthy would need their help. Jake felt it when the other ships awakened. Through his connection with his vessel, he could sense the presence of other architect ships coming online. We're not alone anymore, Jake told his crew. The ships are finding other humans. How many? Dr. Carter asked. 7 so far, Jake said, and more are waking up every day. The Council's great fleet was almost ready to attack. 3,000. Warships, the largest military force in the galaxy's history, were preparing to hunt down a single human and his alien ship. Admiral Zethkri stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the vast fleet. This human has no idea what he's started, he said to his officers. When we find him, we'll end this quickly. But Jake Morrison was not planning to run. The station had taught him everything he needed to know about the Council's crimes. Now, it was time to make them pay for what they had done. Captain Hayes, Jake said, send a message to all human colonies. Tell them what we've learned about the architects. Jake, that could start a war, Captain Hayes said. The war started 50,000 years ago, Jake said. The Council just never told anyone about it. The message went out across all human communication networks. The truth about the architects, the purge, and the Council's lies spread to every human world in days, but the reaction was immediate and angry. Humans had always been taught to respect the Council and follow their rules. Now they learned that the Council was built on murder and theft. "We're not going to let this stand," Jake said. "The architects trusted us with their technology. Now we have to use it to set things right." The architect ship's engines hummed to life. Jake could feel the presence of the other awakened ships. Across the galaxy, they were all moving toward the same destination. The final battle was about to begin. The truth about the architects spread through human space like a fire that could not be stopped. On every world, people gathered around their communication screens to hear the recordings Jake Morrison had sent them. The images were clear and terrible. Ancient videos showed the architects as they really were peaceful beings who had helped every species in the galaxy learn to travel among the stars. Then came the darker images, showing how those same species had turned on their teachers. 50,000 years of lies, said President Maria Santos of the human colonial government. She was addressing the emergency session of the human parliament. "We've been following the rules of murderers." But not everyone wanted to believe the truth. Some humans were scared of what might happen if they challenged the Council. "We should give the architect ship back," said Senator Bob Wilson. "Jake Morrison is going to get us all killed." "Give it back to who?" asked Senator Kate Brown. "The people who stole it from the dead bodies of its builders?" While humans argued about what to do, Jake Morrison was no longer alone. The other architect. Ships had found their human partners, and they were all heading toward the same meeting place. Pete Collins had bonded with his ship just like Jake had. The vessel had taught him about quantum engineering and space-time manipulation. Now he was flying toward the hidden station where Jake was waiting. "I never thought I'd be flying a ship like this," Pete said to himself. The architect vessel responded to his thoughts, showing him star charts of places no human had ever seen. Dr. Rachel Stone was having similar experiences. Her ship had chosen her because she was a healer, someone who wanted to help others. The ship's medical systems were beyond anything human doctors had ever imagined. "I could save so many lives with this technology," Rachel said. "But first, we have to deal with the Council." Commander Nick Taylor's ship was different from the others. It was built for war, but not the kind of war humans knew. It was designed to stop conflicts, not start them. "This ship doesn't want to kill anyone," Nick realized. "It wants to protect people." One by one, the human-controlled architect ships arrived at the hidden station. Jake felt each one as it docked. Through the crystal connection, he could sense the thoughts and feelings of the other humans. "We're all afraid," Jake told the group when they met in the station's main chamber. "But we're also angry. The Council has to answer for what they did." Pete Collins nodded. "My ship showed me things I never wanted to see. Whole worlds burned just to make sure no architects survived. And then they took everything the architects had built," Rachel added. "The stargates, the quantum computers, all of it was stolen." The station's computer was still teaching them about the past. It showed them how the Council had rewritten history to make themselves look like heroes. They had told everyone that the architects had simply disappeared, leaving their technology behind as gifts. The biggest lie was that the architects were mysterious beings who didn't want contact with other species, Jake said. "The truth is that they loved meeting new people. They wanted to share everything they had learned." The station's records also revealed something else. The architects had known that their children were planning to betray them. They had tried to prevent the war through peaceful means. "They offered to leave the galaxy," Jake said, his voice heavy with sadness. "They said they would go to another galaxy if the younger species felt threatened by them." "But that wasn't enough," Nick said. "The other species wanted them dead." "Because they were afraid," Dr. Carter said. He had been studying the psychological profiles the station contained. The younger species knew they could never match the architect's wisdom and kindness, so they decided to destroy what they couldn't become. The station showed them the final days of the war. The last architects had hidden their ships and built the secret stations. They had programmed everything to wait for someone worthy to find. They never gave up hope, Jake realized. Even when they were dying, they believed that someday someone would come who was different from the others. And they were right, Pete said. Humans weren't part of the massacre. We're the only major species that didn't help kill them. But the station's computer had more to show them. It revealed the locations of hundreds of other hidden architect facilities throughout the galaxy. Some contained ships, others had weapons, and a few held the most precious thing of all, living architects. They're not all dead, Jake said in amazement. Some of them survived by going into deep sleep. They're waiting for us to wake them up. The thought of meeting living architects excited and terrified the humans. These were beings who had lived for thousands of years, who had watched their entire civilization get destroyed by their own children. We have to wake them up, Rachel said. They deserve to know that someone finally learned the truth. But before they could go looking for sleeping architects, they had to deal with the Council's great fleet. The 3,000 warships were getting closer to human space. Admiral Zethkri had orders to destroy any human who possessed architect technology. They're going to attack Earth, Jake said. The Council wants to make an example of us. The irony was not lost on any of them. The Council was planning to commit genocide against humans for the crime of learning about the genocide they had committed against the architects. We can't let them do this, Nick said. My ship is showing me their battle plans. They're going to attack civilian targets. Then we stop them, Jake said simply. The 8 human-controlled architect ships left the station and headed for Earth. Along the way, they sent messages to every human world, telling people what was coming and what they planned to do about it. We're not starting a war, Jake broadcast to the galaxy. We're ending one that began 50,000 years ago. The Council's great fleet arrived at Earth to find the human homeworld protected by the 8 architect ships. Admiral Zethkri looked at his tactical display and couldn't believe what he was seeing. 8 ships, he said to his officers. They think 8 ships can stop 3,000. Sir? His tactical officer said nervously. Those aren't normal ships. They're pure architect technology. I don't care what they are, Admiral Zethkri sighed. We outnumber them hundreds to 1. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, surrounded by the other human captains through holographic projection. They could all feel the weight of what was about to happen. The Council fleet is demanding our surrender, Pete reported. Tell them we'll surrender when they bring back the architects they murdered, Jake replied. Admiral Zethkri's response was to order his fleet to attack. 3,000 warships opened fire at once, filling space with enough energy to destroy a planet, but the architect ships were no longer where they had been. They had jumped to quantum space, a dimension that existed between the normal universe and hyperspace. From there, they could move anywhere instantly. Where did they go? Admiral Zethkri shouted. The answer came when the architect ships began appearing throughout the Council fleet. They moved like dancers, jumping in and out of quantum space, faster than the enemy could track them. Jake had learned something important from the station's records. The architects had never wanted to hurt anyone, even their enemies. Their weapons were designed to disable, not destroy. Target their engines and weapons, Jake ordered. We disable them. We don't kill them. The battle was unlike anything in galactic history. The architect ships moved through the Council fleet like ghosts, their quantum weapons reaching out to touch enemy vessels. One by one, the Council ships went dark. They're not destroying us, Admiral Zethkri realized. They're just turning off our ships. The battle lasted only minutes. 3,000 Council warships, the largest fleet in galactic history, floated helplessly in space around Earth. Their crews were alive and unharmed, but their ships were completely powerless. "This is impossible," Admiral Zethkri said. "No force in the galaxy could defeat the Great Fleet." "You're wrong," Jake's voice came over the radio. "The architects could have done this any time they wanted. They just chose not to." The 8th Architect. Ships regrouped near Earth. Through their quantum communication system, Jake could speak to all the disabled Council ships at once. 50,000 years ago, your ancestors murdered an entire species, Jake said. The architects were peaceful, beings who only wanted to help others. But you were afraid of them, so you killed them all. Lies, Admiral Zethkri said, but his voice was not as strong as before. The proof is in your own historical records, Jake replied. The architects left everything behind. All their knowledge, all their memories. We know what you did. The stations. Computer had taught Jake how to access the Council's own databases. Using the architect ship's quantum communication system, he began broadcasting the real historical records to every world in the galaxy. The truth could not be hidden anymore. On every Council world, people saw the images of what their ancestors had done. They saw the peaceful architects being hunted down and killed. They saw their technology being stolen. You built your entire civilization on murder and theft, Jake continued. The stargates you use, the computers that run your worlds, the weapons that protect your fleets, all of it was taken from the people you killed. High Counselor Vexthani was watching the broadcast from Altair Prime. Around him, other Council leaders were arguing. 6 months after the Great Fleet's defeat, the galaxy was a very different place. The Council's government had collapsed when their stolen technologies stopped working. Worlds that had been connected by architect stargates were now cut off from each other. On Altair Prime, the former capital of the Council, people were learning to live without the advanced technology they had taken for granted. High Counselor Vexthani sat in his office, looking out at a city that was slowly dying without architect power systems. "The humans have destroyed everything we built," he said to his aide. "Sir, the humans are offering to help," the aide replied. "They say they can restore some of the technology if we agree to their terms." "What terms?" "Truth and justice, sir. They want us to admit what our ancestors did to the architects." Vexthani was quiet for a long time. Admitting the truth would mean accepting that his entire civilization was built on murder and theft. But without that admission, his people would be stuck in the Dark Ages forever. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison was working with the awakened architects to build something new. The ancient beings had decided not to simply restore the old technology. Instead, they wanted to create a better system. "The stargates will work again," explained Elder Zarathul, the architect who had become Jake's closest advisor. "But only for species that prove they can be trusted." Jake was standing in the command center of New Harmony, a space station built using both human and architect technology. Around him, humans and architects worked together to design the new galactic order. "How do we decide who can be trusted?" Jake asked. "The same way we decided to trust humans," Zarathul said. "We watch how they treat others, especially those who are weaker than them." The architects had developed a test that would measure a species' moral development. It looked at their history, their current behavior, and their potential for growth. Only species that passed the test would be allowed to use architect technology. "What about species that fail?" Dr. Carter asked. He was now the chief scientist. "At New Harmony, they get another chance," Zarathul said. "We believe that all beings can learn to be better." The first species to take the test were the humans themselves. Even though they had been chosen by the architect ships, they still needed to prove they deserved the trust that had been placed in them. Jake was nervous as the test began. Holographic displays showed human history from the beginning of civilization to the present day. The architects studied everything: wars, peace treaties, acts of kindness, and moments of cruelty. Humans are a young species, Elder Marantol observed. They have made many mistakes, but they learn from their mistakes. Zarathol pointed out, that is rare among the younger races. The test took 3 days. When it was finished, the architects announced their decision. Humans pass, Zarathol said simply. You have the capacity for great evil, but you also have the capacity for great good. More importantly, you choose good even when it is difficult. Jake felt relieved, but he also felt the weight of responsibility. Humans would be the first species to receive full access to architect technology. They would help decide which other species deserved the same privilege. The news spread quickly through human space. On Earth, President Santos addressed the world. We have been given a great honor, she said, but we have also been given a great responsibility. We must prove every day that we deserve the trust the architects have placed in us. Not everyone was happy with the new system. Some council species refused to take the test, claiming it was unfair. Others tried to cheat or bribe their way to a passing grade. The hegemony, one of the most powerful council factions, sent a fleet to attack New Harmony. They believed that if they could capture the station, they could force the architects to restore their technology. General Korilak led the attack fleet personally. He had been one of the commanders who helped plan the original architect genocide, though few people knew that fact. We will not be judged by our victims, Korilak announced as his ships approached the station. The dead have no right to rule the living. Jake was in the command center when the attack began. The hegemony fleet was smaller than the old council force, but they were desperate and angry. How many ships? Jake asked. 500, reported Captain Hayes, who was now the station's defense coordinator. They're coming in fast. Jake felt the familiar presence of his architect ship in his mind. The vessel was docked at the station, but it was ready to fight if needed. Do we fight them? Jake asked Zara Dahl. The architect elder was quiet for a moment. Violence should always be the last choice, he said finally. But sometimes it is the only choice that protects innocent lives. The battle was swift and decisive. The human-controlled architect ships moved like they were dancing, disabling the hegemony vessels without destroying them. But this time Jake noticed something different about General Korilak's flagship. That ship is using stolen architect technology, Jake realized. Technology that should have shut down months ago. Impossible, Dr. Carter said. The recall protocol disabled everything. Not everything, Zarathol said grimly. Some of the thieves learned to hide their stolen goods very well. Jake's ship showed him the truth. General Korak had been secretly hoarding architect technology for decades. His flagship was powered by a stolen quantum core that had been shielded from the recall signal. He's one of them, Jake said with growing anger. He's one of the ones who helped kill the architects. Through the quantum communication system, Jake spoke directly to Korilak. General, you're using stolen technology. Technology taken from the people you murdered. I am using tools, Korilak replied coldly. Tools have no feelings. They belong to whoever is strong enough to take them. Those tools belong to living beings, Jake said. Beings who trusted you and loved you like children. The architects were weak, Korilak said. They deserved to die for their weakness. Jake felt something he had never felt before, pure rage. The architect ship responded to his emotions, its weapons charging with deadly energy. Jake, Zarathol said gently, do not let anger control you. That is how the cycle of violence begins. Jake took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. The architects were right. Responding to hatred with more hatred would solve nothing. "General Korilak," Jake said, "you have one chance to surrender. Give up the stolen technology and submit to judgment." "Never," Korilak replied. "I will die before I bow to aliens." "Then you will die," Jake said sadly. This time, the architect weapons were set to destroy, not disable. Korilak's flagship exploded in a ball of light, taking with it the last piece of hidden architect technology that the rest of the hegemony fleet surrendered immediately. Without their leader and his stolen weapons, they had no hope of victory. "It is done," Zarathul said. "The last of the thieves is gone." But the elder architect looked sad rather than happy. "I take no joy in his death," he said. "He was still one of our children, even though he chose evil." In the months that followed, more species came forward to take the architect test. Some passed, some failed, and some were told to come back in a few hundred years when they had grown wiser. The Altarians, led by Admiral Zethkri, were among the first to admit their crimes and ask for forgiveness. They passed the test and were allowed to use basic architect technology. "We cannot change what our ancestors did," Admiral Zethkri said, "but we can choose to be better than they were." The Vegan Republic also passed, as did the peaceful Centauri Alliance. But several species, including the hegemony remnants, failed the test badly. "They are not ready," Elder Morantal explained. "Perhaps in time they will learn." Jake found himself becoming a teacher, showing other species how to use architect technology responsibly. It was strange to think that just a year ago, he had been a simple engineer fixing broken ships. "Do you ever miss the old life?" Captain Hayes asked him one day. Jake thought about it. "Sometimes," he said, "but I think this is what I was meant to do." The galaxy was slowly healing from 50,000 years of lies and hatred. The new Stargate network was smaller than the old one, but it connected worlds that had proven they could be trusted with such power. On New Harmony, humans and architects worked together to explore the space between galaxies. They had detected signals from other civilizations in distant star clusters, some friendly and some hostile. "The universe is much larger than we thought," Jake told the assembled representatives of the new Galactic Alliance. "And we're going to need to be ready for what we find out there." But for now, Jake was content to help build the new civilization. The architects had given humanity a chance to prove itself, and humans were determined not to waste that gift. Standing on the observation deck of New Harmony, Jake looked out at the stars and smiled. The galaxy was finally at peace, and for the first time in 50,000 years, it was ruled by justice instead of force. "Thank you," Jake whispered to the memory of the architects who had died so long ago. "We won't let you down." In the depths of space, the remaining architect ships continued their eternal patrol, watching over the younger races and waiting for the next species to prove itself worthy of the stars. The age of the council was over. The age of wisdom had begun. And humanity, the young species that had once struggled to make fire, now stood as guardians of galactic civilization. The Deathworlder had indeed gotten the all.